Hey team, welcome to the Football Feast podcast. I'm your host, Craig Evans, and over the next 6 episodes, we'll be diving deep into what it takes for young players to become an elite footballer. Every fortnight, I'll be sitting down with experts from the world of football, agents, coaches, nutritionists, and more, to give you insider tips, advice, and strategies to make those football dreams a reality. On today's episode, I have Sophie Mackintosh from Tottenham Hotspur. Sophie's a nutritionist for Tottenham and works with the women's elite team. She's also worked with a lot of Tottenham's up-and-coming talents in the academy. Some of the questions we talked about today were: what players are eating at Tottenham, pre-game and post-game nutrition for athletes, nutrition and menstrual cycles, why players should block out the social media noise, and much, much more. Enjoy. Okay, this is episode 12 of the Football Feast. Today's episode, I've got Sophie Mac, or Sophie Mackintosh. Is that right?
Yeah, Mac for short.
Beautiful. Sophie Mac from Tottenham, Tottenham's women's team at the moment. So how are you, Sophie?
Yeah, really good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Hanging in there. But yeah, no, it's a good start to the week this week, so that's nice. So yeah, I think we'll start with so can you sort of share with us a bit about your journey in becoming a nutritionist at Tottenham and what sort of your role looks like from day to day?
Yeah, of course. So I started probably quite a traditional journey into sports nutrition. I started off doing an undergrad in sports science at the University of Birmingham. So I did that for 3 years. And then straight after that, I went into a year-long master's in sport and exercise nutrition at the Uni of Westminster. And then while I was doing that, I did like an internship at West Ham Women's Academy, mostly doing some sports science stuff, but also like a bit of nutrition. Sort of just education, being around GPS, all that kind of stuff. And then when I finished my master's, quite quickly after, I got a junior role at Spurs. So they created a new role at the time that was for the younger age groups of the boys' academy, so sort of under 16s down. So I started off doing that in my first season, so from like October 22, and then into the next season, so like July 23, I went full time and split my time between the boys' academy and the women's first team, supporting another nutritionist over there. And then from this season, so sort of July this year, 24, when I'm 25, I've gone full time with the women's team. So that's where I'm currently at. Just with the women's team, and I guess day to day, my role obviously was different on the academy. It was way more education because it was with the younger players. But now, education is still part of that, but not necessarily always workshops, or, parents aren't involved in that kind of thing. But, it's player plans, one-to-ones, just being around the building, like being a familiar face, part of the team. Sort of a massive part is catering, so like catering innovation, involvement with our chefs, planning, and then like body composition assessments, supplement provisions, ordering supplements, all that kind of stuff. And then just being a part of sort of the like MDT with the sports science guys, and our psychologists and our medical team, and all the other mundane stuff like filling up water bottles, it's quite varied, but it's been cool to kind of, over the past sort of 2 years, change my role quite a bit and progress sort of in the area sort of straight out of uni.
Yeah, fantastic. It does sound like a busy day, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. Okay, so if you're like a young player and walked into Tottenham's academy for the first time, what can they sort of expect in the terms of sort of, they turn up the door? Do they get, those educational sessions where they get taught how to eat and what they should be eating like?
Yeah, so I think that's kind of why they like created the junior role, because I think there's been a big sort of realization over the past few years of how important it is to educate from the younger age groups. There's now someone else doing that role I was doing as well, which is great. And I think it's definitely about, as soon as they come in from under 9, that they get some exposure. We're not talking about every time they come in the building, they're not having an education workshop or whatever, because that's not necessarily effective either. But yeah, as soon as they come in, we try and do, well, I was always trying to do at least a few sessions a year with that age group and their parents as well. Yeah, because that's really important. A 9-year-old is not cooking their own food or doing their own shopping, so the parents are really key in that. So it's mostly definitely educational workshops, and I think especially with the younger age groups, it's about engaging them as well. So a lot of it was practical stuff, or we might play games or whatever it is, and then some practical bits of different times we might make energy balls or smoothies or something like that. And then definitely parents, and then I think as they get older, the support becomes more bespoke as they sort of move through the academy, and then obviously hopefully eventually into the first team. So yeah, the idea is kind of to build that education foundation right from the start, and even just get them used to having nutrition as part of it, and knowing the nutritionist and understanding why it's linked to football is really important. So yeah, definitely from as soon as they come in the building, we try and get them sort of accustomed to nutrition being a big part of their football journey.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because one of the big things over here is, and I feel like in Australia in general, we're a bit further behind when it comes to football, a lot further behind. But
Yeah.
it's just like so many times I talk to clubs and coaches and parents, and like it's not even really understood. So I think like when just hearing you say that, and
Yeah.
over here when we hear clubs like Tottenham, it's like a big thing. So hearing you say that, it's sort of they dawn on it a little bit, and they're like, oh God,
Yeah.
like we really should be taking this a bit more seriously.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing, and I think there's definitely I think there's going to be some more sort of research into it as well. But I think even the Premier League are realizing, and sort of the FA, the importance of it, and how a lot more clubs are talking about how important it is, and how there is, like, in a lot of these young players, sort of a energy crisis going on, because they're just doing so much. Like, you talk to the parents about what they're doing every day, and it's crazy. And the long days as well, where some of them are training most of them are training in the evening, and are out, from by the time they get up for school and get home, they're out for over 12 hours of a day. So
Mm.
yeah, it's so important to try and get them, just even from like a health perspective. We know not all academy players are going to make it to the first team, but that's not the point. And I think they don't get that kind of education in school either, so it's definitely something we can add, which is really good.
Yeah, 100%. That's a big thing for me as well. Like so many like young children, like their lives are just non-stop. Like they wake up in the morning,
Yeah.
go to school, it's all day at school, like chasey, running around, playing football, recess and lunch. Like after school, they're off that again. Like, you might have after school care, and then they go to training, and then they like, get to bed. Like there's so much energy used through that. And
Yeah.
it really is underlooked, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so can you walk us sort of what like a typical day would look like for a player, breakfast to sort of lights out, or what sort of, I guess, a meal day, perfect ideal day would look like?
Yeah. So I guess I'll talk about it from sort of a women's team perspective, because the academy, especially the younger ones, is obviously really different there at school. I guess the academy older players is probably kind of similar to this, and the men's team and stuff. But yeah, from us, it's sort of players' report time is sort of around breakfast. So they'll come in, have a breakfast. We have a breakfast buffet, and sometimes it will have omelets on it. Sometimes it will just have, then we have obviously eggs, beans, fruit, avocado, all breads and yogurts, all that kind of stuff. We have a juicer. Yeah, so that's kind of like breakfast. Then they'll have, like, their morning meetings, they'll do their pre-activation, they'll go out and train. There's always things around depending on what the session is, if they want gels, if they want energy drinks such as Lucozade, Powerade, whatever it is.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt a
Yeah.
little bit, but like, yeah, and that's player dependent, isn't it? Like, so some players prefer the gels, some players prefer
Yeah.
the sports drinks, right?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the time on a sort of most of our training days, they won't use them because they don't need it. They feel like they've fueled enough, but it might be, on our really tough session in the middle of the week, they might feel like they need that extra, or, match day -1, if we're trying to get more carbs in, they might use it then as well. So yeah, main sort of meals, breakfast, then straight after pitch. If they go straight into a gym session, then we'll put some kind of like snacks out, some kind of shake for them to have in between. Or if they come in and go straight to lunch, most of them don't have a shake because they're coming straight into lunch and gonna fuel well enough anyway. And then lunch, yeah, again, depends on what kind of day it is, but we'll always have a couple of protein options, a couple of carb options, lots of veg, maybe a soup, loads of salads. And then, yeah, they might have some stuff to do in the afternoon, or they might go straight home after lunch. But we'll have snacks available to take home. And again, it will depend on what the day looks like. So if, for example, they've got a tough gym session after lunch, they might be more carb focused, or if not, if it's been a lighter day and they're maybe just doing like a yoga session in the afternoon, we might just give them, it might be sort of a yogurt based snack, more high protein sort of thing. And then, yeah, I guess when they get home, their dinner is their own to make. So hopefully it's a good one. Yeah, and then every day kind of repeats, apart from obviously match days and stuff. It's obviously different. But yeah, so with us, we always have breakfast, lunch, and like snacks available for the players day to day.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because when I'm dealing with players and sort of we're talking about I guess sometimes you deal with people and they'll go, oh, okay, so can you give me a meal plan? And they'll think it's going to look exactly like identical day to
Yeah,
day to day. And I'm like, no, no, I need to know what your days look like,
yeah,
like
yeah,
what kind of training
definitely.
you're doing each day, and we need to work with that.
Yeah, 100%. And like the players have lives as well outside of football, and obviously also we have days off, so we don't provide them food on those days off. So it's all about, I think, if we made the same thing every day at lunch, we're not gonna educate them about what meals should look like and what they should contain, even if they've got different stuff in them. And it gets boring, and it's just not realistic of how they'd live their lives if they weren't a footballer either. So yeah, we definitely try, and we don't have the same thing on 2 days in a row. We don't have the same, we go through like rotations of menus, so we don't do a week, 1 week doesn't look the same until maybe even 4 weeks later, so yeah, we don't have, and still the girls don't have bespoke meal plans. They choose what they eat out of a buffet, and we just try and educate them and around to make sure they make like the right decisions, really.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And even like, so I think a good perspective for people to think about as well is in season and off season is different, isn't it? So like in
Yeah,
season, it's more focused and you want them to be more controlled and planned. Whereas off season, I'm assuming they've got a bit more flexibility.
yeah, definitely. And obviously the off season, a massive part of the off season is for them to recover and have time off, and to mentally recover and relax and not worry too much about things. And then as the off season comes to an end, as they reintroduce back into training, that's when we kind of reintroduce back in sort of a nutrition plan specifically. And it's not we don't say, oh, go do whatever you want over the off season. They know, and I think they all know, they're all really in tune with how they feel and what food makes them feel good. So I think most of them know, they don't go crazy in the off season, and know what they should be eating to make them feel good, help them recover well, and come back in good shape to perform. But yeah, I don't set them off on the off season with the same kind of meal plan and expectation as they would in the middle of a really busy season. So yeah, it's never, like you say, you can't give someone a strict meal plan to follow day to day, because that's the same all week, because it's never going to be like that.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so with such high training demands, how do you ensure players are fueled properly with avoiding fatigue or burnout?
Yeah, so I think a big thing for us, which links with how a sports scientist would plan a week, is periodization. So we definitely periodize the nutrition around training, and we've educated all of the players on that, so what it should look like, but also, we purposefully plan our menus like that as well. So, and our snacks, like I kind of said before, if we have a tough training day and they have a tough gym session, the snacks might be high carb focus rather than just a lower carb and higher protein focus, and lunches will be the same. And we definitely focus on having education up, so it might be we'll have like a moderate day up if it is, so it might be an orange plate and it will have an example of what a plate looks like, compared to on a high day it might be a red one, and we'll advertise what that is up in the dining room. But also, we can change the menu, so we can make sure on a match day -1 that there's foods that have more carbs in them, or things that naturally people are going to have more carbs. So for example, it might be some kind of wrap live station, so they're more likely to have double carbs because they're going to have that and some potatoes, for example. Or if we do a mixed meal, if we do a pasta station or something, they're more likely to have more carbs than if we put on just protein options and carbs. So there's definitely ways to do it like that, using things like juices and smoothies, having them around more. So it's definitely all about periodization, and we kind of purposefully plan that and put it in with the catering team, but also making sure the girls are educated on it and understand what it should look like for them. And we definitely sort of split that between, we've shown them how it's different, if you're a starter or if you're a sub as well, and what that kind of looks like.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so working in like a women's Super League or a Premier League academy environment, what is it sort of like to be around like a prestigious club like Tottenham? And how does the club's culture influence your sort of work with players?
Yeah, I think one thing that as soon as I started at Tottenham was clear was that there was a massive focus on nutrition and a lot of investment into it in the club. I think we had and still have like one of the biggest nutrition teams in any club. Our men's first team has sort of 2 or 3 practitioners. Two of us are on the women's side. There's 3 people in the academy, so we've got a lot of practitioners across the club, which is really important. And I think it shows to the players that it's just as important, like a part of the team, as any other discipline is. Whereas in a lot of places you have one person trying to do the whole role on it, and not that people don't do a good job doing it like that, but the scope of what you can do is so much bigger if there's more of you, so yeah, I think having the club's investment in that is so important. But also I think then having all of those people around means that we have like a really good ability to collaborate and share ideas and progress sort of as a club and do things like internal CPD, because there's 6 or 7 of us, whereas if there's 2 of you, that is not impossible, but it's definitely harder. So yeah, I think the club's culture of focusing on nutrition like that is definitely helpful.
Yeah, wow. That is really impressive. Um, okay, so what are like the most common nutrition mistakes you sort of see players making?
I think a big one is definitely just under fueling. Especially, I think it's very common in the women's game, and I think it's definitely getting better and more people are understanding the importance of carbs for performance and recovery. I think a big one we probably still see is like match day +1 is that the intake isn't as good as it should be, and that might be for a lot of reasons. It's match day +1 can look really different depending on the week. You might be in one week, you might be off one week. So, I think if they're not in the building, it's a change of routine. They might be waking up later, maybe missing a meal, which is one less chance to recover. Or it might be we have a really late game and then we're traveling back really late, and you need that extra sleep, but also just your whole cycle of eating is out of whack. So I think, yeah, just eating enough is a big one. And I think that's the same in the academy as well. From what I saw, a lot of the younger kids, kind of what we said earlier, like just can't eat enough for what they're doing. So I would say that's definitely the biggest mistake, I think, is underestimating the importance of carbs for performance and recovery.
You know what I just thought about as well is people like there's this big demonization on sugars, and I understand it. And 100%, if you're not moving and you're not running around or doing a sport or something like that, you're just sedentary. Yeah, back off on them. But like a child like that, and when parents are very much demonizing carbs in general, they really they really just are doing damage there. And those children, like, it could be affecting their growth and the way they develop. And yeah, it's I don't know, it needs to be a hard look at
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's not even just about the football. And I think that's definitely something we've always tried to get across in the academy is like, it's for their health as well. It's for their growth and development, which is a big focus in the academy settings. And also things like immunity and just general wellness. If you're not having enough fuel for your body, it's barely managing to fuel probably a daily life. Talk about someone who's training 4 times a week and playing a game and doing all this stuff at school, like we said, being up for 12 hours a day, just non-stop. So yeah, it's definitely still needs a bit of work, but I think more people are hopefully starting to understand, like you say, the importance of just getting some kind of energy in your kids.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, so what does like an ideal pre-match meal look like for a player, and how far in advance should they eat that before that match? Um, yeah, are there sort of any specific pre-match meals that Tottenham put forward to players?
Yeah, I guess technically a like ideal pre-match probably doesn't exist because they're all so different.
Yeah.
I would say there's sort of general like rules of thumb for a pre-match. So kind of what we get across to the girls is to avoid is to go low fat, low fiber, high carb is the aim. Good things that are easy to digest, things that are going to give you energy. Um, we look at sort of having a pre-match meal about 3 hours before the game, just to give you enough time to digest the food, and then also we're not saying they're not going to eat anything else before they play. They're just then they might top up on something smaller that's really easily digestible.
Mm.
But obviously, high carb is the focus. So things like pasta, obviously everyone expects that, or depending on the time of day, pancakes is another big one that our players love, and things like that are really good and easy because not only do you have the carbs in the pancakes, but then it's the maple syrup, the honey, some berries, whatever it is to add on top, just adding those extra carb things in. um yeah, things like juices as well, smoothies, that kind of stuff, just to increase the carbs. But yeah, pasta's definitely a favourite, and we'll have
Mm.
that available whatever time kickoff is, because some of them will literally still have it even if we're eating at 9 a.m. Yeah, that kind of thing. Porridge, just bread. Some of them still might have some eggs and things, and that's fine. Others would be like, there's no way I want that, or I don't want beans. But others might be like, I always have beans on toast as my pre-match, and I feel good on that, and that's totally fine for them. But I think that's a big thing is a lot of the players have to take a little while to work out what makes them feel good and what their pre-match is. And then once they get that, like that's up to them. If they're feeling good and they're performing well, then that's basically what the ideal pre-match is, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I do love like the response I get from players when I tell them that I want them to eat pancakes with maple syrup on it.
Yeah.
I just get like this
I
big
feel like
smile,
the
and they're like,
yeah, I feel like the recent one was Declan Rice, wasn't it? Said about it in an interview, saying his nutritionist had said about having pancakes and it's made him feel great. And I was like, yeah, there you go, all the carbs. Because I just think again, people are looking at what they might normally have for breakfast, and they might have an omelette and one slice of bread, but actually then we're only looking at maybe 20-30 grams of carbs, whereas especially a male player, we need significantly more than that to fuel a 90-minute game. So yeah, it's I think it's good having sort of big names like that shifting the narrative for a pre-match for sure.
yeah, that was one I definitely shared. Um,
Yeah.
all right, thank you very much for that one. That helps me promote it.
Help me out. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the key nutrition priorities immediately after a game for recovery?
Yeah, so I think recovery after a game starts straight away, so the first thing we do is give a recovery shake, and it's not that they can't recover well enough with just food, but it's again, I think notoriously don't eat enough to recover well, or don't eat enough, especially on match day plus one. So getting those extra carbs and protein in through a shake is really important. And we'll adjust that based on if people are starting or if they're subs. So the starters will have one that's got higher carbs in it, just to make sure they get a good replenishment of their carb stores in straight away. And then it's the focus is a good meal, again, full of carbs, full of protein to help muscle recovery. And then looking at sort of introducing some sort of anti-inflammatory things, antioxidant foods as well. So, or it might be some kind of turmeric or blackcurrant supplement, cherry juice, that kind of stuff. But yeah, big focus is some good carbs, some good protein. Again, obviously the start of the day is very carb focused. So I think afterwards it's getting back into having some good protein as well. And then, those other little additional extras on top.
Yeah. So post-match changing room, do you have some sort of certain thing that's loaded into the changing room that's ready to go there?
So if we have a post-match meal, if we're away, we have it on the coach on the way home. We have hot food on the way home, or if we're at the stadium, there's as soon as they're changed, so they get the recovery shake straight away, and then as soon as they're changed, they'll go upstairs in the stadium for a post-match meal. We'll have things we use things like sushi to get some carbs and protein in. We might have burritos, or even a sort of sourdough, thin based pizza, just again for some good carbs. And then things like berry pots and yogurts and all the little bottles of smoothies, and then have those little additional supplements available for them to take home as well.
You guys have the little takeaway bags sometimes? I know some players like to have the little takeaway bags and they've got a recovery kit.
Yeah, sometimes we do, and it's actually something we're gonna introduce soon, is a sort of proper recovery bag of little bits. But yeah, we kind of at the moment definitely put the onus on the players to take the supplements they like to take. So some of them really like having the turmeric and blackcurrant tablets, or some of them really like having the cherry juice. So yeah, we kind of leave it all out open for them to take, and there's always takeaway bags and things to use.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so how do you adjust nutrition plans for players based on their menstrual cycles? And are there any specific foods or strategies you recommend to help manage energy levels and recovery during their different phases?
I think the menstrual cycle one is a hard one, because I think it's such a big thing at the moment. It's huge everywhere. You see it everywhere on social media, and saying, oh, in this phase, you should be doing this and doing that. And I think what's really important is that there's no blanket approach that works. There's been so much research done, and everyone's finding that people aren't the same, and even from one cycle to the next, one person can see different hormone fluctuations and different symptoms, whatever. So I think the way we approach it is we track all of the players' menstrual cycles and all of their symptoms. And it takes a little while to get some really good data, but for a lot of them now, we understand kind of what their cycles look like and also the symptoms that they get. So then it's very much about knowing with each player what we can give them to help. And sometimes that might not be a nutrition thing. It might be they get a sore back when their period's coming. So that's more of a thing of, okay, can we give them a hot water bottle, or actually, do we need to give them more anti-inflammatory foods during this time? But some of them might find that they're way more hungry when they come on their period. So I think it's definitely individualized, and just we work with each player on an individual basis and see, does this help you in this phase or not? Because when you're working with a whole squad of 25 players, they are all so different, and also all their cycles are all at different times. So there's no way we can kind of blanket, and also not, even if we said, for all of them, we know that eating more carbs at this time helps them, we don't know that, and it doesn't. So we have to definitely work one to one and see what helps each person.
Yeah, wow. That's that question was put to me recently by a couple of girls that I work with, and yeah, I I, I gave them information about bloating and different things like that. I think at the UK Institute of Sport, they've got a pretty good write up about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tough one. And definitely for me, obviously I don't experience that side of
Yeah.
things. So yeah, yeah, interesting. Thank you for that. That was yeah, I really like how you have the data built up. So you could almost have like a pre-game, like you're like, oh, okay, like we need to get the hot water bottle ready this day, and then et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So
So
we have a conversation every day about, about all the players and what's going on, and that'll be included of, this person's on the cycle, or this person's about to come on, and we know that, she gets a bad back, and that might mean that then sometimes, you can adapt their gym program, or you do that, but there's only so much you can do. You can't be pulling players from, you can't a team session on the pitch, or changing the session on a pitch for one player, so because things will be changing all the time. So it's just like that awareness, and it's really good to have that like tracker to be able to see what's going on with them all.
yeah, yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so let's have a talk about overtraining in Reds. So, do you guys identify early signs of Red S or anything like that in players? And do you have sort of strategies that you implement to help prevent or address them?
Yeah, so I think what we do with every player, especially sort of when they come into the club, or any existing players that we've done, we use like the Leaf Q, so like the low energy availability, like questionnaire on them, um, to sort of look at previous injury history and ask all questions sort of related to low energy availability. Obviously, we do the menstrual cycle tracking, so we're aware if anyone's cycles are abnormal. And then we also do like daily wellness and stuff as well. So if we're seeing that people every day are flagging that they're feeling really low, or they've slept really badly, all that kind of stuff. And then we also do bloods sort of a couple of times a season. So with the bloods, there's obviously certain markers that you can see in people who might be flagged with red, such as high cholesterol, and we can look at their hormones and things. So there's definitely a lot of ways we can flag it, and then we'll definitely individually look if there are any players that are experiencing that, like sit down one-to-one with them and look at, often need to do a food diary to see what they're eating and check that is it because you're not eating enough, or is it because of something else? Is it stress? Is it, especially when we get new players in, it might be moving and the change in routine, or anything that can cause some kind of disruption in your cycle. But using all those markers, and then it be sort of an individual approach for each person.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about hydration. So hydration, I think, was definitely overlooked a lot, especially with players that aren't at like professional levels. I think it's a really good idea for them to understand like how well it's prioritized, and sort of like how will you guys prioritize it, and how do you ensure players stay properly hydrated, I guess, before, during, and after a match?
Yeah, so I mean, day to day, every player has an individual water bottle, so that's always filled up for them every day, and that it's there around training, and it's sort of their responsibility to take hold of. So that's really important, just to encourage them from as soon as they come in at breakfast, they can get their water bottle and be sipping it throughout the day. We always have like electrolytes available as well, for them to put in their bottle, and then during training we have like communal hygiene bottles for them to use as well. So there's always enough available to drink. There's like taps all around the training centre. Sorry, and and then what we've also done is at the start of each season, for every player, we do sweat rate testing. So we'll use like weigh them in, weigh them out, check how much, and weigh the bottles of how much they're drinking, to see roughly what their sweat rate is, especially in sort of a hot weather, so that we can discuss with them, okay, you actually are a really high sweater. So it's really important that, during a game, you need to be drinking X amount, you need to be using electrolytes at half time, that kind of thing. And then every so often, on sort of random times, mostly a match day -1, if we do it, we'll do like a morning hydration test, just like a urine test with like the osmolality. So just to check, because a lot of them, especially in the morning, it's a time where they don't get up and drink anything. Then they drive in, and then actually they've already started dehydrated, and we're like, look, you've now got a couple of hours to make sure you drink enough, have an electrolyte before you go out and train. And then like on a match day during training, there's on a match day, like in the changing room, there's always loads of water, their own bottles, sports drinks, etc. And the same, there's always loads available. So if we're on a coach on the way home or just at post match as well. So yeah, we definitely prioritise hydration. I think it's not necessarily, we don't always have like infographics everywhere like we might for periodization, but yeah, we have definitely put a focus on it and done like a lot of work to make sure the girls know individually what they need.
So are there any sort of supplements that you would recommend for players, or should they rely solely on whole foods?
So I think, yeah, it massively depends. If we're talking about like sort of academy versus first, if we're talking about young players, definitely it's always a food first approach. The only thing we'd always say to parents is about vitamin D. You probably don't have that problem in Australia, but here definitely in the winter months, everyone should be taking a vitamin D supplement. So we definitely recommend that for the young players. And then again, the women, like sort of our first team, again, really similar, always will be a vitamin D recommendation, but we have the benefit of doing blood tests, so a couple of times a season. So then from there, we'll supplement them individually based on what they need. And then really, apart from that, the only other supplements we'll utilise are like sort of recovery ones, like turmeric, blackcurrant, cherry juice, some protein powders. Again, we don't use excessive amounts. They don't all have protein shakes every day, but they're good, especially for recovery or as a top up, or for example, someone who's injured and needs to increase their protein intake, will be using those. And then things like gels and beta jellies and things like that during a game as well. But I think, yeah, we don't, and obviously creatine is another big one as well. I think academy players who are older, when we're looking at like the over 18s, they'll be using them, and also the women's team as well. And then bits like nitrates for performance, caffeine, that kind of stuff. But, we don't go over the top with supplements like health supplements, for example. And it's all, again, very individualized. So, yeah, I think that's probably our approach is always food first, but the supplements can definitely help performance, injury recovery, that kind of stuff. So if someone is injured, we'll give them a supplement plan. It might be collagen and omega-3, whatever, but it will be bespoke to them and what they need.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so are there any like nutrition trends or myths in football you've had to sort of debunk for parents or for any of your players?
I think probably a big one is, again, like probably like we said earlier about carbs and sugar and things like that. I think the priority is fueling and making sure they're getting enough energy. So that's really important, I think, especially to get across to parents, because there's so much information out now about things. And, there's obviously a movement away from ultra processed foods, and which is obviously a good thing and good for sort of general health, but actually it's slightly different when we're talking about performance. I think another one as well is probably creatine, especially in the female players, about, making you increase in weight and bloating and that kind of stuff. I think trying to educate on the benefits of it and potentially short-term like side effects is really important. So yeah, I'd say they're probably sort of the bigger like myths or sort of common preconceptions that we've needed to address.
Yeah, definitely. I've fought those battles a couple of times myself so far. So outside of nutrition, what other recovery strategies do you guys emphasize for players?
Yeah, so I think apart from nutrition, there's obviously a focus on, a big one is sleep. So we have a lot of conversations about the importance of sleep and for your recovery, but then also things like foam rolling, ice baths, having soft tissue massage if you're in the building and there's a physio available. Yeah, all of those things are so important. I think sleep is definitely the biggest one that we have conversations about, but then also using things if we have tools like Normatex or bits like that. So yeah, trying to focus on things. So we'll use, the food first, talk about potential supplements, but then yeah, all those things of using an ice bath straight after a game if you can, and the importance of all those little bits adding up to optimize your recovery.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so for any young players that are sort of listening to this or their parents, and they're dreaming of making it to a top team like Tottenham, what's one piece of nutrition advice that you'd give them?
Um, I'd say my one piece of probably nutrition advice is just like focus on fueling. Just fuel yourself to perform at your best. Like, don't worry about the potential. I think when they're that young, there's not a concern, and in the academy players, I've never seen a concern about them overeating. If anything, they're all under eating and not fueling enough. We're never concerned about, body composition at that age or anything like that. It's if you feel well to perform well and you feel good, you'll perform at your best, you'll look your best, you'll sort of be in your ideal state to be the best athlete you can be. So definitely focus on having enough carbs, feeling good, and then you'll just see you'll see an increase in your performance come from that.
Yeah, I really love I love how Tottenham's addressing players that are that young. Because like I would just imagine like the compounding effect of like players that are capable or have the energy that to turn up to training sessions and are able to get those extra high speed meters out at every single training session from a young age, and that like compounding over the years, like the kind of players that they can become because of those little like because those massive changes is
Yeah,
just yeah, it's huge. Okay, so I've got some quick fire questions for you.
definitely.
Um, so what is Sophie Mac's favorite cheat meal?
That's a hard one. I don't know. I'd maybe say maybe something like a really good pizza or something. I reckon might be my one.
Yeah. Did you have a specific toppings or type?
Don't know. I like a caramelized onion pizza, maybe a goat's cheese, that kind of one. Always good, but yeah, I'm not too fussy.
Caramelized onions, just unreal, isn't it?
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. Okay. If you had to pick a one player, past or present, as your favorite, who would it be?
Was in a Spurs player.
Well, it can be no, let's make it any. Let's make it any player of all time.
Any player of all time. That's really hard. I feel like it's a hard one.
Why is it hard?
I don't
Because
know. I feel like I don't really know. I'm not, I'm definitely into football, but I feel like over the past few years, I've got definitely more into it, as it's sort of gone on.
are you trying not to say a favorite? Because then they'll get annoyed.
Yeah, I feel like maybe sort of from conflict of interest wise, I shouldn't, and maybe it should be a women's player. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to come back to that one. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
No, I can understand why we're skipping that
Yeah.
one. That's fine. Um, oh, we've sort of touched that, but yeah, if fans can take away one nutrition tip from you, what would it be?
I would say for sort of a general population person, it's just like focus on having a balance, eating foods that make you feel good, make you perform well with whatever you're doing. Like, focus on whole foods, just keep it simple. Try and cook from scratch as much as possible, like have the good stuff. And yeah, I think try and block out some of the noise that's everywhere on social media because it is overwhelming for sure.
Oh, overwhelming. Um, Actually, I did a podcast, but the last one before this was with a pediatrician, and she was telling me a story about with one of her clients, and it was a young girl that was given a phone when she was 13. Yeah, 13 years old. And basically she'd gone onto Instagram and she hit the search button and she was just looking for some recipe. She liked cooking, so she was looking up
Yeah.
recipes. And then all of a sudden there was just pictures of like women saying, measuring their thigh gap and all these different things like that. And within a couple of years, she had been anorexia and she was in the hospital and she was on her deathbed. And it was such a like harmless entry point. She wasn't even looking
Yeah.
for really bad things, but yeah, it just led her down that path.
Yeah, the impact it can have is just, yeah, is crazy. And I think now everyone's just, even if it's not, leading to disordered eating or anything, just people are so confused about what they should and shouldn't be doing and feel like you're always doing something wrong. So yeah, I think you've just got to focus on feeling good and doing what, you think is best for you, and try and block out some of all of that noise.
Yeah, 100%. Coffee or tea?
That is also quite hard because I do actually really like both. But I feel like I actually probably drink more tea, especially at work. We have a lot of tea in our office. So, yeah, maybe tea. But I do love a good coffee.
How many a day?
Coffee, I never really have more than one a day, actually. I'm pretty good. Tea really depends on if someone's making one in the office. Some probably max like 2 or 3. I'm not too bad. Not too
Okay, that's not too bad. Yeah.
bad.
I was expecting to say like 10 or something. I was
Oh
going to
no,
just jaw
yeah, no.
drop.
We've even started like a tea tally at work for one of someone who loves tea so much. So yeah, there's a lot of anyone want a hot drink, and you're always like, yeah, go on then, even if you're not really bothered.
Yeah, nice one. I love that. If you could visit any country tomorrow, where would you go?
It's gonna sound funny. Australia, I think, because
Hey.
I've actually never been, and I have family in Australia. So yeah, that's definitely like the next sort of bucket list place I want to go for sure.
Yeah, cool. Whereabouts of the family? Is-
Sydney.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah. It just anywhere here is beautiful. Like I feel like
Yeah.
you could land in any of the cities. Maybe not so much Melbourne. Melbourne's good, but I feel like Sydney, you've got Bondi Beach there, and it's like stunning lineup. And honestly, but just
Yeah.
our coastline's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I do really want to go. Yeah. They live in Sydney, and now they've also got a flat in Newport, I think.
Okay, yep.
So they've got, yeah, definitely want to go. Might try sort of next Christmas time or something, because we get a bit of a winter break in the WSL, so it would be nice, but hopefully just very far. It has to be planned in advance.
Yeah, you'll definitely get the shock of no snow for Christmas. Like
Yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
um
No
it's
freezing weather.
yeah, it's funny because like my son, every Christmas time you get like the movies that come on or books or something like that, and like all of them have snow,
Yeah.
and he's never seen it. It's just a confusing thing to
Yeah.
explain to Australian children. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
we had a couple of years ago. It's my dad's brother. His family came over from Australia, and his 2 sons came for the first time. And my dad's other family all live in the Highlands of Scotland, so we went up there, and like we drove through the most insane amount of snow you've ever seen. And we got stuck in a traffic jam, and they were behind us, and we were like, don't come, just stop at this place and wait. And the boys were like, no, we want to come and get stuck in the snow, we want to play in the snow. Like, they loved it. They were like, it's the best thing ever. Whereas, yeah, I mean, we don't get loads of snow here, but we've definitely all seen snow, and like, we're used to seeing it around. So yeah, it's definitely a very different kind of Christmas, I think.
Yeah, because obviously you're in London, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, like Essex, so just outside London. Yeah.
Yeah. I only know of the show that every
Oh, Towie. Yeah, the only way is
yeah,
Essex.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one.
not quite like, it's not all like that. Essex is quite a
Okay,
big place.
I'll take your
Yeah,
word on that.
yeah, I would definitely.
Okay, so if you had to describe your job in one word, what would it be?
Ooh, one word. I think probably dynamic is quite a good word. For my job, like it just changes all the time. It's really hard when someone's like, "What do you do every day?" Because it's so different every day. Um, and I think you have to be so adaptable, and anything can change. Games can change, fixtures can change. Like our weeks are always different. So yeah, I think dynamic in that sense, but I think also like being a nutritionist in a team and just in that kind of environment, I think you have to be dynamic and be positive and have a lot of energy. And so I guess it kind of has a bit of a double meaning that probably works for the role, I reckon.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so yeah, that's all for now. That's the questions I've got for you. I was going to take you back to the question that you skipped, but decided to leave that. But yeah, no, thank you for stopping by. I've really enjoyed this, and I've no doubt that people will get a lot out of this. And it's really good, like I said, to get the perspective of a top team, someone that's working around a top team, and passing that on, because there's a lot of people that just don't have the understanding or that knowledge yet, and it can go a long way, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me. It's been really good
That's
to
great.
chat.
Just before you leave, if
Mhm.
people wanted to sort of see where you're up to, or wanted to get some more information about what you're doing and nutrition in general, is there some way they can keep an eye on you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. I'm not too active on there. Probably need to be more. But my Instagram handle is just Sophie Mackintosh. Yeah, so that's probably the best place to see me on there. Like I say, I'm not an avid poster, but I do look on there a lot, repost a few things. So
Nice one. All right. Thank you very much, Sophie.
thanks, Craig.
Yeah.
That's all for today, guys. You can follow the Football Nutritionist on Instagram and X, and jump onto our blog at thefootballnutritionist.wordpress.com. Remember, keep fueling for success and kicking those goals.